Hi, I'm John Robertson, the Member of Parliament for Glasgow North West, and with me today is the Secretary of State for the Department of Works and Pensions, James. Got a few questions for you. I hope you'll be able to answer them. The first one is the first one is about people who have long-term illness, of which I have something like one of the top 15 in the whole country, and the problem of getting these people into employment and to support them at the time of transition from being long-term ill and into the employment and then supporting them initially. How are we doing that?
Well, I think that's a really big issue, and actually I was in Glasgow a few weeks ago talking to the City Council, and I think they've done brilliant work there which we can learn a lot from. And I think the key thing is to provide people with support and not to write them off. You know, the system used to be that people would be put on IB and then be completely forgotten about and no back to work support. And as of last month, people can now, wherever they are in the country, if they're on IB and they want to be getting back into work, there's a great program called Pathways, which has had real success in helping people, you know, find work and change their lives. And I'm sure you, like me, I spoke to lots of people who've gone through this program, and at the end of it, they're just saying, I wish I'd done this years ago. I wish I got back into work years ago. So that program's there and definitely worth looking into.
And the support that we give these people after they get in employment, how long should that last for? Is it a year, 2 years, or should we be keeping an eye on things?
Well, I think it depends on the case of each individual. And so there's lots of people who I think build up a relationship with their advisor and who'll ring up and say, how are you getting on? Because if you've got someone who's been on IB for a few years getting into work, you want to make sure that actually that transition goes smoothly. And if people have got disabilities, for example, there's a great program called Access to Work, which will pay for adaptations in the company workplace so that they can work just as much as anybody else could.
Good. Well, my next question is about one-parent families, and children in these kind of families, they reckon it's 35% more likely to grow up in poverty. What are we going to do to try and help these people?
Well, we've done a lot already. The employment rate amongst lone parents has gone up really quite fast in the last few years. But it's a little bit like people on IB. We want to provide that extra support for people. So again, we made some announcements on this last week, a couple of weeks ago, which mean that if a lone parent moves into work, we'll give them a credit for being in work. We'll have someone who's their advisor there who can help them with any transition issues after they've gone into work. And also there's going to be a little emergency fund. So if they have a problem with childcare, or if they have a problem with having to pay some rent or something, that doesn't in itself become a reason for dropping out of the labour force. So there's a big package of support there for people.
Yeah, I think what you're telling me is, for both the questions I've asked so far, is that the support there, how do we make sure they get the support and they know about it? Do we train, training not just for them, obviously to get employment, but the people who are advising, what are we doing in that?
That's a really important point, and we're, obviously anybody watching this, if they want to bring up their job centre, they'll be delighted to hear from them. But we also try and go out and talk to people in their streets, say, would you like to look at this support, and find people who, whose lives you can change by getting them into work.
I'm sure my local job centre plus will be very grateful for that. My last question I want to talk about is about the winter fuel allowance. I have more than above average level of elderly people. In fact, at one time in the Olga-Skaden constituency years ago, it had the highest level of elderly people in Europe. So I try and look after them as best I can, and the winter fuel allowance has been excellent for them, but we'll keep announcing £50 rise, a one-off payment, and yet we're also using it to help offset some of the problems we've had with 10p tax. So what are the chances of getting that £50 consolidated and looking at that as another way of looking after my elderly people?
Well, I'll take that as a budget representation for the Chancellor for next year, and obviously, matters for him I can't sort of prejudge, but I know this is something you campaigned on really, really hard and got a great reputation for doing in Parliament, not just on this issue, but also looking after the interests of older people. So I'm sure it's going to be something that he'll take very, very seriously.
Thank you very much. Thanks.